Hey, what's going on, gang? This is Nate on the Stone. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the 45th episode of The Rolling Stone. And this is a special edition of The Rolling Stone because of the day these videos are being posted, which, if you look at the stamp at the bottom of it, you can see it is Leap Day, February 29th. It's on a day like today. It's on Leap Days that I'm very grateful that I was not born on February 29th, and so I don't have to wait 4 years for my birthday to come around, although the older I get, maybe that's not such a good thing. But if you are one of the fortunate few, or one of the few cursed people, however you want to look at it, whose birthday is Leap Day, well then, enjoy the day, many happy returns, and for everyone else who is watching on Leap Day, I hope that the day is joyful, profitable, and that you just really make use of this extra 24 hours that we get once every 4 years. Time is one of the most precious things that we can get. Money comes and goes. You can lose it. You can make more of it. You can always find a boyfriend or a girlfriend. You can always upgrade your equipment or your car, etc., etc. But the two things that you can never get are time and energy. So, on that note, let's get started on this 45th episode of The Rolling Stone. And our first story is about the Born Alive. It is the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. This was a bill in the Senate, and the Senate voted on it this past week on Monday. Unfortunately, the bill did not pass. It needed a quorum of 60 votes to pass, and at the last tally, there were only 53 votes for it and 44 votes against it. Okay, now I say unfortunately because the entire premise of this bill was that if a woman got an abortion, but the abortion was a failure and the baby actually lived, then it would have been legally required of the doctors and of the hospital attendants, etc., to give that baby medical attention so that that baby would not die. The Washington Post described this bill this way, quote, "The bill would require a healthcare practitioner to exercise the same degree of professional skill, care, and diligence to preserve the life and health of the child, as he or she would to any other child born alive at the same gestational age. The bill includes criminal penalties, a right of civil action for an affected mother, and a mandatory reporting requirement for other health providers," unquote. Now, in a sane world, or in any world that actually had even just the slightest sanity left to it, this bill would not be an issue. Even if you were the biggest proponent of abortion rights, this bill should not have been a big deal because the bill didn't restrict abortion, didn't do anything like that. It simply said that if a baby survived an abortion, if the baby was an abortion survivor, he would have to receive medical attention so that he wouldn't die. But we don't live in a normal or sane world, as I know you guys all know. And so, of course, this bill had opposition to it. Now, no surprise, one of those opponents was Planned Parenthood. Okay? And the current president of Planned Parenthood, a woman by the name of Lena Wen, she said this in opposition to the bill, quote, "We must call out today's vote for what it is, a direct attack on women's health and rights. This legislation is based on lies and a misinformation campaign aimed at shaming women and criminalizing doctors for a practice that doesn't exist in medicine or reality," unquote. An acting president of Planned Parenthood, Alexis Johnson, she added this, quote, "The politicians behind this bill are making up a problem that doesn't exist because their ultimate goal is to ban safe legal abortion in this country. This bill serves no purpose but to deny people the ability to make the best choices for them and their families," unquote. Now you might be thinking, what are they smoking? That it's denying women their right to choose, it's denying them abortion. This bill, does not do anything like that. It doesn't restrict abortion. It doesn't tell women they can't have abortion. It doesn't do anything. It simply said that if a baby survived abortion, that baby would be required to receive medical attention. That is it. That is all that this bill did. Well, and it also criminalized doctors who wouldn't do that, but we're going to get to that in a second. Now, you might have picked up on something else, that Lena Wen and Alexis Johnson and other proponents of this bill said that this was a law for which there was no problem. That basically the problems that this law was intended to fix, they don't exist. Now, what do they mean by that? Well, what they mean is that there are very few late-term abortions, okay? Abortions that happen 21 weeks or over in a pregnancy. And then they said, well, babies surviving, those late-term abortions are very, very rare anyway. Now, the first thing that I'll say is that even if it's very rare for a baby to survive a late-term abortion, 21 weeks gestation or over, that's not a legitimate excuse to oppose this bill. None whatsoever. If you cast your mind back, I believe it was right after the Sandy Hook school shooting, which was, in 2011, I believe, if memory serves. And I remember President Obama saying that if, that if any of these gun control laws, which people kept, putting forward, et cetera, and arguing for, if any one of those laws had just saved one kid's life, then it would have been worth it to pass that law. I would say that the same logic applies here, right? If just one abortion survivor could be saved from this law that was voted down, again, this Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, then that should have been more than enough reason to actually vote for it. Okay, so that's the first thing. But what are we to take about the claim that late-term abortions, again, 21 weeks gestation or over, are very rare? Well, that does seem to be the case. Okay? The Center for Disease Control, in its last abortion survey, the data ends at 2016, I believe. They said, the Center for Disease Control says that 1.2% of all abortions happen at 21 weeks or over. Now, that doesn't sound like much. That doesn't sound like much at all. Just 1.2% of abortions happen 21 weeks or over. But put it into this context. When Planned Parenthood itself performs over 300,000 abortions a year, 1.2% comes out to 1,485 late-term abortions every year. Now, to put that into more perspective, again, that number comes from 2016, That number comes from the Center of Disease Control when they asked Planned Parenthood, and then that comes from 2016. There is no more recent data for the Center for Disease Control. Abortion is not something that the Center for Disease Control actually keeps up on yearly, Wonder why that is. Hint, hint, wink, wink. So that number is from 2016, 1,485 late-term abortions. Now, to put that into perspective, in that same year, 2016, there were 352 homicides in New York City. So, 4 times as many late-term abortions in 2016 as there were homicides in New York City. And New York City is no longer one of the most dangerous cities in the United States, honestly. I don't even think that it's in the top 20 cities which have the highest homicide rates anymore. That was really in the 70s and 80s before they started getting tough on crime. But that is still a huge... that is still just a a horrible perspective almost to have, that in one of the biggest metropolises in the United States, New York City, right, the murder rate for 2016 was 4 times lower than all the late-term abortions that were performed in that same year. Okay, so that's the first thing. While late-term abortions do seem to be a rare thing, thank God, that is still a huge amount. 1,485 babies aborted. Okay, 21 weeks gestation or over, when the baby could technically live outside of his mother's womb. Okay, that is horrific. Okay, but that is all just kind of icing on the cake. So none of these excuses really work. This bill did not restrict abortion in any way, shape, or form. Okay, this bill, the idea that, well, late-term abortions are rare. Well, 1,485, yes, is rare compared to over 300,000 abortions, but still, that's a lot, okay? So that doesn't hold water. And even then, again, even if babies who survive late-term abortions are rare from that number, shouldn't they receive a guarantee of treatment? Shouldn't they be treated as persons, right? As survivors? Shouldn't that just be our logical state of mind, that a baby needs help, he needs medical attention, and so we need to provide that medical care for him? But that is actually the reason for this opposition. Okay, all of this stuff, when I quoted Lena Wen and the acting president of Planned Parenthood, Alexis Johnson, all those excuses that they made, all the other excuses that pro-choice, pro-abortion people made, that was all a feint. It was all obfuscation, because the real reason why there was opposition to this bill is because this bill revealed the contradiction that is at the heart of abortion itself. And what do I mean by that, okay? Think about it like this. What is the justification for abortion right now? It all hinges on the idea that the unborn baby is not a person, okay? That traveling through the birth canal and then being born somehow, it somehow conveys a transubstantial event onto the baby, so that what wasn't a human person is now magically a human person, right? And some people, even like Pete Buttigieg, go even further. They say, well, the baby's not a person until after, he takes his first breath, which raises even more questions, okay? Personal story here, when my little sister was actually born, she did not take a first breath right after being born, because the umbilical cord was actually wrapped around her neck twice. They actually had to take her from the maternity ward and give her oxygen right away. Okay? So according to Pete Buttigieg, my little sister wasn't even a person right after she was born. And in fact, if my parents had decided, well, right at that moment, it's a girl. We really didn't want a girl. We were kind of wanting a boy. We wanted this one to be a boy. So, no, just kind of, discard it. We'll try again. That would have been perfectly okay in Pete Buttigieg's world, because, hey, she hasn't taken a breath. She's not a person. That is the logic upon which abortion hinges, that the unborn baby is not a person, okay? This bill, however, tears that to shreds, because it treats abortion survivors like people by requiring doctors and hospitals to give them medical attention so that they don't die. Now, how does it do that? Think about it like this, gang. Think about it like this. If the abortion had actually succeeded, that abortion survivor would not have been a person, right? Because he wasn't outside of his mother's womb, therefore he's not a person, therefore it's perfectly okay to abort him. However, because the abortion failed and this baby actually now survived, all of a sudden magically he is a person, and now he must be given medical attention so that, everything must be done. So that everything must be done that can possibly be done to sustain and preserve his life. Okay? That is the contradiction. That's the real contradiction that this bill tore down, right? Because now all of a sudden you're saying that his personhood simply depended on the fact that the abortion procedure failed. What was supposed to kill him failed. And so now, because he has sort of survived death, he is now a person. I mean, it's ludicrous and ridiculous when you actually say it out loud. And that's the reason why the left was attacking this bill so much, because they realized it. They realized that this bill really revealed that contradiction. It really, really did. That's why they made their usual claims about women's rights and it's a bill for which there exists no problem. And the real goal of this bill is to restrict choice, etc., etc., when none of that thing was the case. None of it was the case. And so another point, okay, is that it's really, this is a genuine example, almost, I would say, of evil here. Because, again, even if you are for abortion, there shouldn't be any question for any of us that babies who survive abortion should be given medical attention. But the fact that the ideology is more important than these babies' lives, that says a great deal. And it also raises a lot of interesting questions, that have applications for us now, because if these abortion survivors are not people, right, because they don't automatically deserve medical attention, then what does that mean about personhood? What does that do to personhood? So now, logically, personhood is not automatically conveyed simply by being born. Hey, if you survive being born, kid, you're a person. Congratulations. You can join the Brotherhood of Man. You can join, the polity of citizens of your country and your culture and your society. You made it, kid. You win the solid gold Cupid doll. Well, now if abortion survivors, again, are not automatically persons because they're not automatically guaranteed medical attention, right? Then when does human personhood actually start? Does it depend on thinking the right things, thinking the right way about the right things? Does it depend on party affiliation? Does it depend on intersectionality? What does personhood now depend on? That is sort of that is where now the conversation has logically gone because of opposition to this bill. Okay? It used to be, birth equals personhood. Now, however, the zany and evil philosophies of people like Peter Singer. All these people with the last name of Singer, they seem to be not the best people. they seem to be villains of some kind or another. And if your last name is Singer, my apologies in advance. That just seems to be a weird coincidence. But anyway, philosophers and crazy evil philosophers like Peter Singer, who has argued actually that you should be able to kill a child until he reaches like the age of 2 years old, because until that point he doesn't really have any reason or anything, right? That has always sort of still been on the periphery, even on the left. No one has really wanted to go there. But now, this opposition to this bill has pushed that logic really now more into the mainstream than I think anyone really wants to admit. Because again, if birth doesn't automatically convey you personhood, if surviving abortion and then living outside of your mother's womb doesn't convey personhood upon you, what does? And what's more than that, who confers personhood on us? Okay? More scary stuff in that regard, and more ideological battles to be fought on that front. But anyway, that is story number 1.